this debate is a bit complicated, so I'm going to start by clarifying exactly how this is going to work and what we're talking about. Then I'm going to explain why people are going to suffer while their consciousness is being uploaded into this sort of game or whatever it's going to look like. I'm going to explain exactly what it is. And then also why I believe it is better to stay here, even if for some people it could be hard, and work up and get a better quality of life. But understand exactly what it means, right? It's about uploading your consciousness and not irreversibly. It means that the moment your consciousness, everything about you is being uploaded, nothing is left behind. There is some kind of a shell, your body is probably still there, but everything about you, your feelings, your memory, the things you like and dislike, is all about being uploaded into some kind of a world. Then what is this world about? Well, even it's important to know this debate is about startup. It means it's a company that wants to make money, a company that wants that as many people as possible will also choose to come into this world. What does it mean? It means that a couple of things. A, just by the way this motion is worded, they are going to be stuck there forever, and they will never die, right? It's been being irreversible, it's been maintained forever. You are going to be for eternally continuing to living within this world, and you cannot choose to stop it whenever you want. Moreover, since it's a startup, they're just likely to want to make many kind of to just show everyone how good it's going to be there, to get as many consumers as they can, right? They want to show how good and all the positive things. They like to get celebrities. They're going to say, oh yeah, I'm going to be there, it's going to be so much fun, right? They want to get like public coverage to people to like it. See, they just like to make it as convenient as possible. Likely you won't be hungry in this world, you won't need to sleep, and all of that. Clarification, yes? Yeah, you probably have some manifestation within this world. You probably have still something that resembles a body, because you need to probably do things within this world that probably looks like this world. People want to be somewhere they can understand, something that is similar to what they're used to. This world is just likely to look like the world we know, but you won't feel pain, you won't be sick, you won't grow old. You will just be whatever you are right now within some kind of a form. Okay. Hopefully this is clear. No, it's enough. Okay. So we think that obviously they're just likely to be within this world. Also, they want money, so just likely to give perks. If you're rich and you come there, you can pay beforehand, so you get better things available within this world, get a better quality of life. We just think it's likely to look like that. How exactly you're going to suffer? And notes, it's yes. From the way this motion is worded, it seems that many different problems, it means that you can upload your consciousness. The only company who's likely to be able to contact it is the startup itself. We do not understand what exactly you want to do. Sorry, I don't understand enough about computers. I don't know if you just inherit it, then why you're likely to suffer, even if what they said is true. Because just we think that living eternally, being stuck over there, is just a bed on its own, right? Because I think many times, no, this emotion is complicated, I'm sorry. Let's understand why you're likely to suffer. First of all, just because you are going to be there forever, why is this bad? We think the things that make people really happy is when they actually have something they want to achieve, and they have a certain goal they're working for, knowing that next year or some period of time, I'm going to work hard and get something, right? We think many people derive a sense of meaning from those kind of things that they have in their life. How is it likely to change? We think now, the moment you are going to live eternally, just things have become so much meaningless. Yes, I can go out and do those things, but I can also do it 10, 100, 1,000 years, right? We think the moment you don't have a limit, you're more likely to push things away. Why is this bad? Because many people regret it afterwards, right? Many people, when they look back, they decide, oh, maybe I should have done things differently. But they do it after a year or two because they have an actual limit. In this world, they're just likely to live forever. We do not see exactly how those kind of things are just likely to happen, but just note, right? The moment you can do things forever, it means also the amount of possibilities you have can be is much wider as well. Why is this bad? Because when you have many different things to choose from, many people just can't really decide. It makes them overwhelmed, makes them just unable to see exactly what's going to bring them happiness. But B, if you go and pick something, you're always going to see, well, there's a huge amount of things, other things they can do, and I just didn't do them. What is the comparative? On our world, the moment someone chooses one thing, maybe first tries something else, he's likely to walk and look in himself, do I find meaning within it? Knowing that you have limitation, knowing your life is limited, there are only a couple of things you're actually going to achieve in your life, makes you more likely to work, to think, to find meaning within those things. We think in their world, they're more likely to abandon it, to look for the next good and the big thing because they're going to be eternally there. We think this is exactly when people don't really develop meaning, when they move from one thing to the other, and this is when they suffer. But even more importantly, the moment you're stuck there forever and can't get out, is going to make many of them suffer because it's irreversible. Every time I'm waking up, I'm going to think, how is my family doing that I left behind? How are my friends doing today? Did I make the right decision when I decided to leave this world that everyone I know is in? I'm going to be somewhere else. Why is this extremely bad? Because we think this is exactly the kind of things you are going to regret each and every morning. When you are doing the meaningless things you are going to do in this world, you're going to think how my family that I love deeply is going to do. Right? You're just likely to want to regret it. And no, we think the specific problem that you are stuck there forever, you cannot get back, is going to make this even harder when you know that you have no options. You are stuck there and there's no meaning to everything, and it's horrible. But even if you want, even if there are more people there and you interact with them, you know it's all fake. You know within a wall it doesn't even matter. You know it within a computer, right? We just think many people, even if they do things in there, they think it's all fake, think it's all meaningless. We think the comparative is being in the real world, knowing that things have consequences, knowing that your life ends and you actually need to do things. I think all of those things are just more likely to bring happiness. But then also we want to tackle the idea about they're probably going to talk about, look, there are people who are suffering under status quo and they will just going to choose to go there. We're just saying, first of all, they aren't really likely to get the real picture, and most of them are going to regret what they did, right? Specifically because of the incentives that those companies have, as I told you, but moreover just because many times they don't understand. I suffer right now, maybe I sick, maybe I ended a bad relationship and I think that I suffer and I want to be in the computer, and it's the easy thing to do, right? Especially in the world where they have all the incentive to make it the easy choice because they want to get all of that money, right? Why is it horrible? Because I think this is the kind of irrational choices that those people are likely to make, because they do not understand the real consequences. No one can comprehend what it means to live forever. No one can comprehend even this long amount of time, right? Maybe I can think, okay, for 1 year it's going to be better than there, but I don't understand the kind of suffering I'm going to feel after 100 years where I cannot see my family ever again and I'm going to be stuck there forever without them. I can then suffer for thousands or if tens of thousands of years missing my family, being without them. I think it's horrible. Even if some of those friends actually come there with me, then we are just likely to feel bad together for all those reasons I gave you about how we feel and nothing matters, about all of those things. And just even if we fight or something bad happening, I'm stuck with them forever and I cannot do anything about it. And not it's important. On our side, I can actually choose to fix things. When I don't have this easy option, when I'm stuck with trying to fix a bad relationship, I have incentive to work together, to try and look for ways to make things work again. The moment I have something that is far easier to just move away to this perfect world everyone is advertising to me, I'm just more likely to choose it. Why it is bad? Two reasons. A, because the person himself is going to suffer, but not the third party as well. The one who chooses to stay behind, the one who wants to fix the relationship, is going to be left without anyone to talk with. If I fought with my family and I'm not depressed or something and I'm making rational choices and I'm moving into this world, my family is always going to suffer and they have no way to try and fix with me and I have no way to try and improve myself. Because I think people are going to suffer in them and outside of them. We hope to continue in this debate. Thank you.
Okay. I know. We'll start with some framing and about what we just heard. So I asked if this is a consciousness, a mind without body, and they said yes. But then they said something very strange, that these minds cannot communicate with the current world. We don't understand how this makes sense. Why they should go to this oblivion and be disconnected. If it can be uploaded, it really is, do you want to live forever in a mind without a body, or do we think this is bad? But it doesn't mean that you need to live in this disconnected world, no ability to connect to your relations. We think this is ridiculous. We will argue that you can, otherwise the startup will never have anyone going to this, because say, you know, you go there and that's it. We never hear of you again. We don't understand why this is tempting to anyone. So another thing that was not analyzed, and I'll get to that in a second, is who is likely to really go to that, and what is the motivation? They just assume that some people will go, and then, oh my God, they'll regret it. I don't understand why. And I'll talk about that. Second, we heard about things that, oh, you can't regret that. Well, let me just tell you this as a quick rebuttal. There are many things in the world that you cannot regret. For instance, making kids. And still we think it's okay. I mean, I have one of my kids is here. It's okay, believe me. Let's move on. No. Thank you. Now, so having said that we believe this, so let's first start with who is likely to do this. We think that most people will not want to leave this current world. We actually have great things here. We have sex. We will not be able to have sex over there. It's a mind without a body. Probably not have sex. And we have other good things, like the great food we're getting here at lunch every day. People will not want to give up that. So what is more likely that the people will leave are the people that just are about to die. If you have a child that suffers from cancer and he's 10 years old, that's the time to upload his consciousness so you can continue to communicate with that with your child, because this is probably one of the worst things that can happen to a parent, and you don't want that. This is like a amazing solution. It's not as good as to have your physical child to hug, but it's better than to have him just dead without the consciousness. Who else we think is likely to move? People that are about to die and are great people like Steve Jobs, who could continue to contribute to the world with his consciousness, not with his body, and he knew when he was about to die. So only people fatally ill are likely to take this and go to this cloud and actually have their mind continue to work with the world, continue to communicate, and we think this is important. We didn't get any analysis of who is likely to move, so I think they'll accept that. No, thank you. I'll take closing if you have anything. Thank you. Okay. I don't have 7 hours to discuss regulation. This is a complex thing to say. You know, we can assume that this is not coerced. We can assume that this kind of makes sense. We assume that people crazy are not allowed to do that. And again, I told you the motivation. It's likely people who are dying, so we don't see the big issue. Let's move on. So, okay, now, hold on, breathe. Okay, why do we think, so first of all, the thing you gave you some kind of, very basic advantages. You're talking about children who are about to die, and you think about the misery for their parents, and the fact now that they can have at least the consciousness of their child, the personality of their child, what he thinks, what he wants, talk to him, communicate with him, even if this is only text. We think this is a huge benefit to those people, and definitely we are happy to have a world with that. Also, think about the great inventions. Think about the great people, great leaders who could still be there and advise us. And we think this is a fantastic thing if we could have still people like Steve Jobs, or maybe great composers in the past, or other great people like Donald Trump. No, mark that out. But other people that we may want to go there in the future. Another thing that is important is something that now, if we have those minds over there, we can communicate, is to learn from history. Because one of the things we see today in our world is populism, where a lot of leaders today claim to be following the footsteps of the great leaders of the past. Think about, for instance, Chirac in France at the time. He thought he was Napoleon. He really acted like he was Napoleon, and he believed that he was really following the footsteps. And where I come from, we actually have Bibi in Israel, and he definitely believes he follows Begin and Jabotinsky, which he doesn't. It would have been great if we could actually ask them and have them comment and have them talk to them, what is your legacy? Because people today pretend to follow legacy of great leaders, and Trump believes probably is following Washington or Adams or whoever. And we could actually have those people tell them what they really think. Even if we don't have to ask them, because most probably populist leaders would not do that, because they know they cannot pretend to be following those leaders. Hold on. Okay, opening, yes. Because the books and speakers do not convey everything, and because that's why we see the phenomenon today, where populist leaders tend to actually be, if that was true, then we wouldn't see this phenomenon that I'm describing, and you don't deny that we don't have it, because the books are simply not enough, and they still do that as we are today. So apparently it's not enough, otherwise it wouldn't be. Now let's go on to the thing about infinity and why we think it's not a problem. The problem with infinite life and eternal life is really the physical problem. If you happen to be 1,000 years old, then your body starts to deteriorate. If you happen to be, 60 years old, you get bald. It happens. Things like that are the problems of the weak body. And that's why what gets your life to be less successful, less happy, and less meaningful. But now we're talking about a fantastic thing. We're talking about a mind without a body. We're talking about a mind that can flourish forever without the limitations. All those things, for instance, people tell us if we had eternal life, we would have overpopulation. We would not have a place to house everyone. We would not have the ability to move the riches from one generation to the other. All these problems, all those problems go away if you only talk about the mind. And the mind panel, when disconnected from physical limitations, is boundless. We have no evidence of any limitation of the mind on its own. We know that people are capable of fantastic things. People are capable of getting new ideas, new information, and because we have to assume that that mind will going to have some kind of communication, and we can assume that that mind will be able to continue to develop without the downside. So we heard from opening government that probably that mind will try to defer other things, that mind will try not to do things, but we believe that if it will live in a space, in a special cyberspace without a body, it doesn't have a reason to defer things. It doesn't have a reason not to actually go and pursue things that it wants to pursue, because there are no distractions. We're talking about the pure mind without a body. Today you can say there are distractions. Oh, you know what? I'd rather go to the... sorry, missed that. Thank you.
So I'm going to do three things. First of all, clarify what exactly we're talking about, because opening opposition are really trying to make this a really messy and ugly debate. Secondly, why happiness is just a relative thing and people are likely to suffer in the Neuralink as well. Thirdly, wherein people in this world are likely to suffer so much more. This is the main difference in this world. We are going to win mainly on that. Before that, a few points of excitement. So let's talk about the mechanism and what is going to happen. Even if you're allowed to talk with the outside world, which we think is rather like okay for OG in this debate to define, that you aren't possibly going to do this, we just think this is a bad thing that will happen, right? Because first of all, people will look at me as someone who abandoned me, right? Think of the kid with cancer who is stuck in this world, who his parents never see him grow up, who he sees his parents just dying away, and they're always sad because they can't hug him, they can't touch him, they can't kiss him, they can't actually experience his own life together with him, right? This is a horrible situation, which is just more horrible than just, you know, moving on. Yes, we think that's a really hard thing to do, but we just think it's a better and preferable thing to do. Moreover, this just means that the family will suffer as well. Secondly, just more people are going to choose to live this way than the terminally ill, right? Specifically when they're talking about overpopulation, people who are like close to old age, people who suffer from poverty, people who suffer from sickness. We just think a lot of people have a lot of reasons to go to this world where you just don't have this, these physical feelings. No, so they basically concede that a lot of people are going to move there, so we actually don't understand why their extreme case actually stands in this debate. Lastly, I'm honestly not sure how unique Steve Jobs was, right? This case is crazy and symmetrical at best. Why? Because first of all, there are so many innovations today. There are so many other people who can replace him. If Steve Jobs stays the CEO of Apple, then you don't know what maybe the next CEO of Apple was so much better, but he can't be it now because Steve Jobs just holds on to power. Moreover, think of horrible people like Kim Il-sung or Hitler who are just going to live forever now and are going to stem all of these ideas like they explained to us. Really, this case is so symmetrical that it just doesn't make sense. And we also think it's a bad thing. We think that this life works when people die and then they change and then you have different generations which have different ideas, which have like less racism and more progressiveness over time. This is just a good thing overall. We honestly don't understand why their case is in this debate. Let's now talk about like relative happiness, because here's the thing. Happiness is a relative thing, right? When we look at little children, then they are jealous with who has the shiniest toy, who has the biggest toy, who has more toys, right? You're just in interaction with other people, and in each and every small interaction, you know that you have less options than them, less choices than the person next to you, right? This is also a biological thing, right? We think competition is something that happened when our brains were developed. You just wanted to have more things than a person next to you because this is how you survive more. This is how you gain power structures in the world. Why is this crucial? This is crucial because in the world that we talk about, the startup is likely to have the same incentives as the world outside in this world as well. Maybe it's not about food and like starvation and stuff like that, but we believe that once they want to make more money, they want to have rich people transfer a lot of money to them, and they want to take most of what they can from these people specifically. This means that when these people like prioritize success in life, when they think that capitalism is a good thing and a good incentive in life, because this is how they were created, right? This is how this startup thrived, and these are the people behind this thing. When they play video games all day, and in each and every video game, you have experience points and you have like achievements that you can gain. This means that you have some kind of unequal war. What does this mean? This means that people who have more money, when they transfer into this world, are still going to have so much more money than other people. What's the comparative? The comparative is now that you live forever and you're going to suffer forever. Why? Because here's the thing. First of all, you are jealous of all the things that other people can do and you can't do because you have a limited amount of time. Because you still have a certain amount of limited resources which exist in this world, where you have this eternal FOMO. But moreover, when you have power structures, when you have a lot of people who can gang up around a specific person because they have more power and they give them more things, we just think this world is going to be so much worse in terms of power structures. Because then a lot of people are going to gang up on you, and even if you are a minority in this life, then you're just going to have so much worse off because more and more people are just going to have more and more things, and you won't be able to change the situation when you're stuck forever in this kind of reality. Well, all you have is this. So we just think this is so much more suffering as it is before I go on, yes, open it. You can still bribe specific people. There are still limited amount of things you can do, limited amount of experiences. Maybe I don't know. You can buy more time in a day. Maybe you can buy more resources. Maybe you can make the fact that a lot of people are your slaves because other people threaten them with eternal suffering. Right? You don't need to have money for this. You can actually threaten them of hitting them a lot. Lastly, let's talk about where people in this world just suffer more with this, just suffer more. Here's the thing. Without the Neuralink as well, we just opened up another horrible option to these people. This point didn't get any rebuttal from the previous speaker. We won't be able to answer it. Why is this the case? Because you can always doubt what you have in this specific world. You can always think of, wait a minute, I could have left. I have a lot of things which make my life suffering today, right? I have a wife that I might not be happy with in a lot of these situations. I have a job which I'm not happy with. I have a lot of problems with my kids. But once I have this possibility, once I have something that I know, with a click of a button, I can upload my life, start them all over, and now have an entirely different life, then people are going to have this bickering doubt in each and every second of the day. Why do I have to deal with this kind of situation? This situation is just not something that is necessary for me, right? I always have the capability to move there. This just means that we open up a possibility which doesn't exist in this real world, because now people need to work hard and solve their problems, and we think in most situations you are able to, right? Clicking this button is the easy way out, but most people know how to go over their social interaction and their hardships. This is something that we think just causes immense suffering on our side for the people who have the possibility to move to that world, or the people who moved there and just regret it for their entire lives. We just think this amount of suffering is the biggest impact that we can offer to you in this debate. We didn't hear any engagement with this. So overall, this is why we win.
OG were clever enough in 15 minutes to realize all the bad things that are probably going to happen in that world, I assume that the entire population of this earth can probably come together and think of all the bad things that are going to happen there. What does it mean? It means that if we all know all the benefits and all the disadvantages of going into that software, we can make a choice as rational people. In our society, we allow people to make those choices today. If they want to defend preferring a world without that choice, they need to defend why we are not allowing rational people to make the choice that's going to be better from themselves. Given we explained already all the benefits in that world, we say they never gave you a criteria why we should deprive those people from having the possibility to choose. I'm going to talk about two things in my speech. I'm going to talk about, first of all, the individual. The second point is going to be about the entire society. Notice, I'm the deputy. I have a right to do a rebuttal. All the things that the deputy tells you, oh, we have no point engaged. I give you a PY, I have the right to do a rebuttal. Let's talk about the rebuttals that they never get. I'm going to take you later, I promise. They say, look, you're going to be, wait, no, before that? Okay. They say, look, in this software, money is still a factor, and you can still use it into your advantage. I'm truly not sure what kind of world are they seeing. Am I going to, as a software, repeat, I have $1,140 in my bank account? I'm truly not sure how money is going to function. What are you going to say? Oh, look, I bought a pink software today. Do you like it? I'm totally not sure how money is going to... Are you going to buy a slave? And I'm going to pay them the slave. What are you going to give them? I'm going to say more hello to you. I'm totally not sure how money is going to pay. And also notice that once we say that, they say that money is a bad thing, when we have it on our world, at least we give them an option to opt out and have a world without money. And then let's talk about what we get from POI, and hopefully that is the extension, because that's our only way to engage actually from different houses. They say, but look, what about regulation? So look, we have regulation even today for things like artificial intelligence, right? We acknowledge that there are some problems. We say that we have the fiat to say we'll do it slowly. Open in government already do it. So every argument coming, talking about regulation is going to come as nothing to what their open in government says, that they have the fiat to assume that we're going to do it perfectly. But we already in this world, we already see regulation to difficult stuff like automated cars, also something that can be harmful. We see it today, we think we're going to see it tomorrow. Let's jump directly to the individual, okay? Because if OG are right, and a lot of people are going to choose to enter there, we are in favor of a world where they have option to do it. Notice, no engagement at all, with what Danny already explained to you about who are the people that are going to choose to opt in that situation, and why we think it's something that's good. But we also notice that we say that people that have lost something, they are doomed to entire life of hurt and suffering. The deputy tells us, oh no, but look, like they're going to like suffer because now they're going. The comparative is people that have lost their child are not going to be able to see him again or talk to him again. We say at least we give him that option. When you compare between life that are only suffering or life where at least you can suffer less, notice even if I'm not able to hug my child, at least I'm able to ask, are you okay, and listen to the answer. We think it's enough on the grieving side of this motion. But then also notice furthermore, because everything as that OG already described you are stuff that are people doing to themselves, right? When they talk about the fact that people are going to procrastinate and are not going to achieve all the things that they want, couple of answers to that. Hey, notice today, I know that I'm going to die sometime, and I still procrastinate in every time I need to study to a test. We don't say that as something that we shouldn't let people do, because if people shouldn't do it, then you should probably kill me because I've done it so much. We say that today, in our world, you're going to have a deadline. If I only have like 1 hour a day, and I should or study to a test or prepare for words, I have to choose between those two. When I'm going to live forever, at least I have the option to have a great degree with great grades, and maybe also come to the open final at some point, because I don't have to choose between those two. I know, it's important. You don't have to choose between those two. So even if I procrastinate to a certain amount of time, it's still better that I have the option to do both of those stuff at the end of it. Also, notice that even if you procrastinate, the fact that you're going to live forever, you can at some point do it. And B, we just say that notice. The fact that we allow people to do it today means that we need to allow them to do it at their role. We say that people that are going to think that procrastination is something bad, probably not going to choose to opt in that software if they think that it's going to enhance the fact that they are procrastinators. At least we give them the option to do on their side of the house. And then when we ask when my partner talks about kids, it's important because if they understand that there are things that are irreversible and we still allow people to do, this is on the same touch. Now, let's talk about, so we say that at the end of it, once we give the individual the option, we explain both of the sides, they say, oh no, but the startup is going to say only good things. Yes, we know, but luckily we have other startups that will probably want you to stay in this world and are going to say bad things about the software or your family that were going to convince you to do it. And notice that if their argument, that if their only fear is that people will miss their family, okay, so that argument is for me to not move from my city at any point of my life because they will probably miss my family. We let people do these decisions. We want to let them do these decisions today, meaning we give more choice to the individual and more freedom and happiness. Before I continue to my second class opening. Okay, also having kids, also having every other choice that I make in my life, also studying in Tel Aviv, you're not in Oxford, is irreversible and probably will hurt me. We say that once you're not that informed, I just give you 3 other reasons why you can be informed, by you're going to have that information, so you're not informed. And B, we say that even if you're at some level not informed, we still let people, before they make kids, they don't have to sign anything about I'm informed and I'm not going to leave that child at any point. It's not enough for us to take the people the option. Now let's talk about the society. Because we already explained to you how we're going to make good changes by using people like Steve Jobs. They tell us, look, but Steve Jobs is replaceable. Okay, we're just saying we don't want Steve Jobs to go away. We can use Steve Jobs and the next Steve Jobs together to make things better at the future. The only response is, look, but also bad people are going to stay. Bad people are staying because Hitler already left like Minecraft, and we think that's not going to change a lot because it's already there. Notice that if they talk about replaceable, bad people are going to be replaced by the next dictatorship, and most people forgot about Hitler when we had other people. So, at the end of it, if bad people are going to leave their impact no matter what, at least we have more good impact by leaving Steve Jobs and the next Steve Jobs. Because of all of those benefits, please oppose the motion.
So there are a couple of things here, the virtual existence and the physical existence in which Neuralink actually exists. I think our biggest criticism of opening opposition is that whereas they overestimate all of the benefits that exist within the virtual space, they underestimate the fact that there is still going to be a real-world physical company that would have to keep up all of these existences forever. What we're going to analyze first as closing government is how could they potentially do that, right? Because in as much as money doesn't have to matter in a world in which everything is virtual and you can imagine everything and will everything into existence, the fact remains that there still has to be a physical company that has to be able to exist and pay the forever cost of maintenance, which we think is a terrible thing. So let's imagine 3 potential ways that they could monetize this technology and why we think all of these are potentially very, very terrible ideas. Maybe the first one is you create a tiered buy-in model. You make costs very, very high at the beginning, and you make costs very expensive for the people who can pay them and very minimal for people who can't afford to pay them, and thus make the benefits much, much better for individuals who can afford to pay it and much worse for individuals who can't afford to pay it. And I think this means you create inequality and privilege forever for a group of individuals to the extent that some individuals will just live their lives living with their arbitrary disprivilege. And to the extent that we agree that those disprivileges are inherently bad, we think extending them to a forever space, allowing individuals the benefits of living forever, no matter how good it might be for those individuals, is a terrible thing. We think death is a good thing in that regard. Maybe secondly, you have a subscription model, right? Like since it's a forever thing, maybe the costs would be absorbed by the people who are currently alive. We think this is still a bad idea insofar as people who are currently alive who have to deal with their real world problems are going to be feeling the guilt and the obsession over keeping certain existences, certain consciousnesses alive, and we think this is terrible in uploading that emotional guilt upon these individuals. We think a world in which people, some people just naturally die and you can't do anything about them anymore is a world in which you don't have to feel that guilt forever or have to think about, okay, do I pay the bills for myself this month or do I keep my grandfather alive? I just love my grandfather so much. Thirdly, in the worst world, maybe they go for a freemium model in which you like, instead of like making individuals who are both alive absorb these costs, maybe this corporation would just use these individuals as processing power. Maybe they could replicate these individuals and start selling them as technology, like use the consciousness of a really, really popular individual or really personable individual and make them the new AI that you interact with instead of kiosks, right? Because their data now, you can start replicating them. I think what this means is that for some individuals to live happy and good lives, then some other consciousness have to be created with eternal indentured servitude. Even if it's just like a life where I have to live the rest of my life watching ads on YouTube, I think it's going to be one of the worst ideas ever. So I think the problem with this debate so far is that insofar as they refuse to acknowledge that inasmuch as the utopia might exist within the virtual space, there's a real life company that has to deal with it. Opening opposition is definitely going to lose this debate, and I think that's just better than the analysis from opening government that assumes that money would exist within the space. I think regulation is a very viable problem in this debate because most of the ways that we regulate abuse and problems towards humans is the fact that we know that those bad things are happening to humans based on the same quantifiable metrics that we ourselves experience. What I mean is, I know when Sally is being abused because I see her physical body, and Sally could express through Sally's way that she is being abused. Whereas a consciousness has to be filtered through the supercomputer, and the supercomputer gets to control everything that an individual says. Literally, this company has the ability to filter what we can hear out of that person and what we can hear about that consciousness, which means that they have the incentive to make sure that we only hear positive things out of these individuals. If these individuals are being made to be indentured servitude, they could still have like a graphic user interface that says, I am living a really, really good life with 72 people, 72 partners, right? So we think that is a very terrible thing. And I think thirdly, there's just the problem of access in general. So insofar as this is a capitalistic startup company, they would obviously just want to be able to sell this to people who can afford it. So individuals who can't buy in are locked out of a good life. Importantly, just because some people are living good lives does not necessarily mean that we are creating a just society overall. And I think that is one of the most important things that we ought to care about in this debate. Closing. Sorry, can you repeat the question? The abuse of what? I don't really get the question, I'm sorry. So I'll just move on. Let's talk about the relationship with death. So I want to engage the philosophical virtual reality space thing. So I'll talk about two things. First, why they create very, very obsessive humans who have a very unhealthy relationship with, I think, some very important human aspects. And secondly, why it's just worse for society overall. Number one, humans will obsess. So to the extent that opening opposition says this is great because you're keeping some dead ones, some people who might pass alive, we think this is really, really bad because it creates a very unhealthy relationship with loss. You're essentially creating the suggestion that you should keep your relatives there forever, right? You should keep your relatives forever. You should keep the people that you love forever, and you're never going to be able to move on and cope with these individuals. We think this is an extremely terrible idea. And I think secondly, it's just terrible for meaning insofar as there is no such thing as infinite pleasure. So the deputy leader of the opposition was obsessed with the idea of like making it to the open break and making it to the open final. But in reality, if like you win the open final in your simulated reality and then you have the rest of infinity to go and you can have so many other open finals, it just stops becoming meaningful after like the 9,999th open final where you schooled Harvard A with your perfect three levels of argumentation. I think human consciousness veers towards absurdism and misery to the extent that when you start thinking of why am I here, and like all of those problems exist, we think if you keep that on forever, that's going to be so much worse. And the fact that it naturally terminates at a certain time is, we think, an excellent idea. Why is this worse for society? They made a big deal about like keeping George Washington alive. Well, honestly, we don't want to hear from George Washington. He should stay dead. That guy owned slaves. I want you to remember that. But the problem is that consciousnesses, they generally use the limited sphere of their existence, their experiences from a very young age, and keep that forever. So a society in which we keep our leaders alive forever is a society that's never going to progress. A society where we're going to revere and revere these same figures at the end of the day. We think it's also bad for societal progress in that death is the greatest equalizer. A world in which the rich can stay forever is a world in which some rich individuals, even though they could pass into their children, would just like keep hoard their massive amounts of wealth, and we think this is the worst idea overall. So in a very, very unclear debate, I think the closing government is going to take this. Thank you.
I think there's a difference between extension of privilege and exercising privilege in the very first place. I think they're worried about the exercising of privilege as opposed to the extension of one. Because if you're worried about, say, privilege being extended, I think they can happen through multiple factions like, say, inheritance and, giving a property, etc., etc. I think those are the things that are like the most concerning extensions of privilege as opposed to the exercising of ones. I don't think how their world makes it like far worse than the current intention of privilege that exists in society today. I think they need to essentially deal with it. Okay. So what I'm going to do in this debate, we'll give you like two pieces of extension. First of all, we'll talk about why is this an escape from life and why is this particularly important, and how it sort of like changes the perspective on life if death is not a factor that's holding you back. Secondly, we'll talk about in general how society progresses better and why we'll do a bit of like data analysis and why it helps you better to understand how society has progressed in a lot of instances. Alright. So first of all, I think O tells you that this is going to be like a quid pro quo model where you probably will be able to talk to these computers over and over again, but then they never really give you incentive mechanism as to why this is likely to be. See, first of all, what you need to understand, the reason why this is likely to be extremely, how do I say, interaction based is because, like I agree with Leomar, this is going to be a revenue model in the very first place, which is to say that this can be a museum where you store the consciousness in a computer, because you can't look at consciousness and then get something out of it. That means this model is likely to be constant revenue based, which means there will be constantly like monthly subscription based, etc., etc. Which means these companies would want interactions more often than not, and because of these interactions, they'll end up making more and more money in the future. The reason why your argument, Leomar's argument about, say, oh, this might be fake, or this might be, say, authenticated, is problematic is because, see, if this person is your grandpa or your mother, you've literally had a communication of them for like, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 years. If there's anything that does not feel genuine or feels out of character, you're definitely like to call it out at any point of time. So I don't really see how this is like to happen. Secondly, I think Leomar sort of understood Mira's POI, but pretended not to understand it, because Mira's told you that these individuals are like you said, are probably the most richest or the most powerful in society. One thing that they like to do is exploit poor, but the thing they don't like to get is exploited themselves. So if this means that they are getting exploited, it means that they're going to call these things out. And I don't think, I think like with Facebook, like the more it's progressing, the more intricate the antitrust laws are getting. So I don't think why this is not going to be happening in their in the very first place. Okay, third thing, they tell you, Leomar tells you that it's going to guilt trip you forever. And that's why it's essentially problematic, because you will have the guiltiness inside you, understanding that, oh, do I keep my grandpa alive or do I not? But how is this analogically different from pulling the plug in life support when your mom is on your deathbed? I think in both scenarios, you don't know, you want to keep them alive, but you know that the financial constraint is too much for you to keep them alive in both scenarios. If you can make the decision in one particular scenario, I think you'll be able to do that in this scenario as well. I don't see how that is a good comparative in this particular scenario. Alright, so let's move into positive extensions and let's tell you why this won't be irrational decisions in the very first place. First of all, because I think OG doesn't win this debate because they tell you that, oh, you're so impulsive that you will opt into the decision at any point of time. But the thing is, you need to understand that most of the points of life that give you some level of self-actualization actually require a body in the very first place. What are the things that you get the most meaning out of? I don't know, maybe like things like having children, things like traveling, right? Things like going out with friends, etc., etc. These things cannot happen without a body in the very first place. Which is to say, because these things give you meaning, that means you will want to keep your body alive, or you'll want to use your body as much as you can till the point you die in the very first place. Which is why I don't think people will be essentially impulsive. People understand that their bodies are important, and they'll want to keep whole of their bodies because it gives you some level of mechanism very fast. Secondly, I think individuals are likely to move on from these sort of situations in most places as well. Secondly, I think in places like with terminally in individuals, things like euthanasia, more often than not, these things aren't accessible to these individuals because they take a lot of time, but also they don't allow you this because you don't feel a certain way in these situations. Why is this good under our world? First of all, a lot of these individuals who are suffering from these sort of diseases actually struggle from expressing themselves in the very first place. This goes to show situations like people who have things like Down syndrome often struggle to talk because it's painful for them to do these sort of things. Under our world, these individuals now, after they go into that machine, can liberate themselves. An individual who struggled to talk for 20 years of their life hasn't been able to tell their mother that how much they love her, how much they know that their mother is sacrificing for them. And imagine that particular mother who's been cleaning this person's urine from their bed every single day, never knows that whether or not their son actually recognizes that do they love him or not. Imagine the amount of emotional catharsis they're likely to receive in this sort of scenario. The mother, because they know that the son or the daughter valued the sacrifice, but secondly, that son or the daughter knowing that I can finally talk to my mom. I think this is particularly important because this empowers the most vulnerable group in the society, and I think that's particularly important. Secondly, I think this is a great escape in and on itself. Why? Because often life is a dichotomy in a lot of situations. Like you work hard and you keep on working hard till the point where you feel like you need to do something for your family. It's a choice between feeding your family versus spending time with your family. Often in a lot of situations, individuals have to end up feeding their family because money is particularly important. In this sort of situations, you can't get to spend quality time with your children. I think this is particularly important because all those individuals who know that I'm putting in the hard work right now, I'm putting in the hours right now, I have time later to make sure that I can guide my children. I can essentially make sure that my children are there for me in this way. That's first. But secondly, it actually gives you more meaning in most situations. Why is this important? Because often the things that you work for are the ones you end up missing out on, which means you've worked all your life to ensure that you see your son get a college degree. Or say, for example, for an Indian man who's worked all his life to make sure that he can finally see his daughter getting married, but passes away before that. I think these are the most fulfilling things that can happen to these individuals, which means they get more meaning because they have worked all their life for this. Now they can finally enjoy it. Even if they're dead, they can finally feel the happiness that accumulates through this. I think this is particularly good. But secondly, you are also likely to also give more time to family as well, because you know that now, even after you're dead, there are avenues that they're going to come up and talk to you, they're going to care about you. Because if your family doesn't care about you, they're not going to visit you, which means you have more incentive to be kind to your family, to be kind to your children, to be kind to your parents, because you want them to visit you after you're in that machine. Okay, secondly, often in a lot of situations, a lot of movements that we talk about get killed off because the leader gets killed off in these sort of situations. See, this is a comparative, I understand, because they tell you bad people will stay alive. But the thing is, good people will stay alive as well. The thing is, the amount of good that these good people could do now don't go down the drain. What that means is, people like say Mahatma Gandhi or Nelson Mandela, if they were to live forever, I think their legacies on a comparative is far stronger because these are people who are intuitively more liberal policies. But secondly, I think the mass following that they have at that point of time is essentially much more stronger. But secondly, the counter narrative is there'll all be individuals with bodies opposing them. So I think it's a good match. But secondly, I think what this is important is there will be lived experiences. Why is this particularly important? Because what you need to understand is that there are individuals who were black and existed in the 1960s, and now they're existing in 2015 as well. The Jim Crow laws don't exist, but black people are still oppressed. The reason why this data is important is because if that cognition stays alive, you can talk to those people, take their lived experiences, and then match status quo with it. Under your world, the comparison is always that, oh, laws are better. But then laws don't need to be better right now because you can actually ask them if on-the-ground realities have changed or not. I think that's far, far better. That's why our world has much more better data analytics and social comparison. Thank you.
think that opposition side and all of their benefits to work need to explain to us why living forever or enjoying the pure mind is a benefit in and of itself and one thing that people always aspire to. Because for as long as individuals are always emotional and are always greedy based on different interactions and experiences, their version of happiness will also constantly change based on this pure mind. The biggest harm coming from closing government is that A, Neuralink is unlikely to create shared experiences either for the underprivileged and for the privileged individuals, but secondly, this is unlikely to guarantee shared happiness of individuals even if we were to assume that this is accessible for all individuals. I think this is the first one, right? Secondly, I also don't think that opposition side was necessarily able to prove in this debate as to why the mind and the permanence of that was necessarily good. Because for as long as we were to tell you that there is a satisfaction and a contentment that people can feel or can be satisfied by the mere fact that they are alive and that their body exists even if they are disabled, I think that we can easily win in this debate. And notice that the previous speaker actually concedes to this as well. And I guess to a certain extent, opening opposition has this very soft premise as to people are naturally incentivized to live anyway because of the shared experiences and because of natural bodily pleasures that you are able to have. No, thank you. But I think there's a problem when you want to make it continuous and infinity to a point where you're only focused on your own mind in the process of that. The first thing I want to do first is to respond to the previous speaker. The first thing they tell us besides the weird concession is that rich people don't have an incentive to exploit this because they already enjoy the physical aspects of life and that they already enjoy the privileges of the physical world. I think that there are three responses. Firstly, I think Leomar already preempted that the model in which corporations work aren't necessarily just one premium type, in which it works in three different models in which the more or the richer people and the more privileged individuals are probably able to access closer experiences and better experiences in the process, which means that the accessibility or the type of experience that you are able to get is not necessarily equal in all aspects. So maybe you can have free trial, but we don't think that this is necessarily one that will be similar for all individuals who are probably going to have a closer version of a virtual reality or an interaction with their dead ones. The second one, I think that this doesn't necessarily change the fact that physical limitations always exist. So even for dead people, they fear the fact that they will die. They fear morality. They fear the inconsequential or uncontrollable aspects of, let's say, human death and human accidents. So I don't think this model necessarily incentivizes the rich to not exploit anything. The rich people also suffer from the same physical limitations that opening opposition and closing opposition defines in this debate. Secondly, I think this is also responsive to Diallo's idea on procrastination. I think that it is good that people feel a sense of urgency that they have to do something extremely well in the moment that they are alive. And I think this is important because this means that it's not just based on their pure mind or the actualization of what their identities is, but it's also based on how people remember them in the future when they die because their consciousness is no longer clarified in the process of this. That's the first one. But then secondly, I think that in terms of feeling more happiness in the process, notice that happiness and the concept of that always changes. It means that you can continuously perhaps have different experiences with your mind, but this does not necessarily make it the same because the physical world still interacts and reacts in different forms. That's why your version of experiences are still unlikely to be framed and formed within your own definition or concepts of happiness. The first thing I want to do now is to tell you about the business ethics and the regulations and why this is crucial in terms of looking at who wins in this debate. There are two premises for this. I think in any government, when there's a business practice or a corporate practice, it needs to be somehow accountable and predictable in terms of how we allow for these things. So yes, maybe Facebook and for other corporations, they can exist and that there are antitrust laws, but we still think that these are harms that can be calculable. There are enough empirical evidence to note that these are likely to exist in a certain net harm or net good. The second premise of this, and the reason why this is particularly harmful with the Neuralink, is that a lot of the risks are based on the consciousness that are extremely subjective. So in order for the companies to profit, they would need millions and millions of consciousness to be uploaded, but then they would not be able to calculate what are the net good or net harm that would exist from all of these millions of consciousness being uploaded because they're all going to be unique and different anyway. So it means that if there are certain harms, these companies would probably just say that these are reactions that are extremely subjective, therefore they're not accountable for. No, thank you. But then this is the last reason as to why we think that this is particularly important. I think that the avoidance of death should always be based on objective studies. So this is the comparative, right? We want to avoid death as much as possible under both worlds, but the way we do it is very different. We want to make sure that medical studies and understanding human experiences are based on the physical world. We want to ensure that the governments rely on medical sciences and actual objective studies to make sure that people don't die, unfortunately, or people still have some agency in the process of their lives. With opposition side, I think that this is just playing God in which they're allowing the ability of this arbitrary concept to allow you to float around. And the reason why this is particularly important is because Leomar tells you that the shared experiences of the body allows equal opportunities and rights. The conceptualization of who should access education systems, who should access, let's say, healthcare benefits, are all based on the same limitations of that physical body, and you are unable to have that in the world of opposition side when these subscription models are based on who are privileged and who are richer enough to get better experiences. I think that it's extremely disgusting for closing opposition to say, now you can live a comfortable life after all your limitations of the human world, and I think that this just makes it easier for governments to be lax and not create equal opportunities for the physical body to have the same capacities and benefits in the process. Yeah, sure. No, so the cost benefit is that when more people join, you need to spend more costs in terms of keeping that technology, and you obviously still want more money. So if there are people who can still provide and pay more money, it means that you would still have to make niche and different experiences in the process so that you can exploit more money from the rich and from the poor as well. The second idea, I think there's a philosophical aspect as to how we should be looking at death. Leomar tells you that the reason why we care about human emotions is because we're able to materialize these concepts. When you allow a corporation to have the transfer and to allow the projection of these things, these are not going to be necessarily unique to that aspect of what makes me Amira, what makes Dan Lahab an amazing speaker. It's not just like us transcripting his speech and saying it's amazing. It's based on the reactions and the mannerism that are unique for these different individuals. And the reason why this is particularly important, because even if there are no harms on the opposition side, they're unable to get the unique benefits of what makes this child that died something that's valuable to me. If anything, right, I think you just objectify this human being to your own pleasure, which denies all capacity of them running the idea that this is based on a conceptual of individuality. You are unable to have that because we think that consciousness is also derived from accumulated experiences with the human world. But then secondly, I think that in terms of how we allow the ability for individuals to interact better, I think that on the opposition side, you have segregated worlds of versions of happiness, and we don't think that this is necessarily true. Because in our worst case, right, maybe people have a more shallow version of happiness, and we think that's good, right? Wherein maybe I just like the fact that I'm listening to the same song with Yomar. We're in the same physical experience of debating together. And I think these are concepts that are still possible under our side. Things like Steve Jobs as well. I think that you are unable to have the best version of him because what makes Steve Jobs unique is how he was able to explain his knowledge and explain his concepts. I think even for moralities and histories are based on the projections and norms of society. I think that closing government is the only one to prove the impact of this faith. Very proud to propose things.
First, they pretend they don't understand my POI, and then they strawman me, right? I think the idea about abuse was very clear. All the abuse of the machine and the technology on the poor about premium models are probably not true if you buy their premise that this is going to be accessed by the privileged the most. Because I think, like, given just how much control they have over society, how much they donate to politicians, how much they fund their startups to begin with, it is unlikely that you will not be able to see that if your grandmother is abused in that machine or not, right? Because I feel like they have much larger control. But second of all, I think, like, this entire idea about privilege and why, like, the lack of engagement to Adi's material is going to be very costly, right? Because Adi tells you that not everything is an extension of privilege, right? Because if the privileged can play golf, I don't see how that harms the poor. That is an exercise of privilege, not an extension of it. Because by logic, the extension of you being inside a machine does not impact anything at, like, truly in terms of inequality, because far greater things such as inheritance, far greater things such as just moving your networking to other people exist. Also, they tell us that, look, people will now fear a new death. That is incorrect, because people fear death because they fear the fact that they're going to miss out on a lot of things that they have not been able to get in life, right? So currently, why do we fear death in this world? It's because I still have not seen good judging in WSDC, right? I still have not seen, like, I don't know, my cat give birth. I'm a cat man, right? So these are all the things that I lack. But once I am dead and I'm inside a machine, I've been able to go through all the experiences that I wanted to. I think individuals are far less likely to be fearful of death, but also because they don't go through immense physical pain and whatnot. But if that is an issue, I think like it is a world where we can imagine a lot of things, right? So if it's a corporate structure, right, and people can consent to what happens to them, I think they can just consent to things like, oh, keep me alive 6 hours on New Year's Day. Keep me alive, like, I don't know, 5 years during Eid, right? 5 hours during Eid. So even if people are like conscious forever, I think to what extent they're conscious can still be controlled, right? But even if that is not the case, what are other things that they tell us? That look, freemium model is like problematic because your future generations will need to pay and whatnot. I think like any obligation that puts your future, like a future generation under the pressure of paying for you without them consenting for you, I think like these are illegal to begin with. But like also like there are likely to be other corporations that just simply come up with better business model. If business ethics is an issue, let this startup develop. I think like you always have like startups competing on like, I don't know, more ethical grounds, on like more services provided to individuals, right? Then they tell us that look, if the idea that if you only exist in a machine, you're going to be happy, by that logic, people who are like paralyzed, they should also be happy. The reason why that like analogy does not work from like Garmin Whip is because people who are paralyzed probably haven't gone through the experiences. And Adi gives you analysis as to how this provides immense amounts of catharsis to individuals who have never been able to thank their mother, who have taken, like, looked after them. Why is this catharsis so important within this debate? Because I think people feel different things at different points of their life because of the experiences that they go through. Death is the biggest experience that individuals have. We think as a result of it, how you view things, how you view people that you used to hate in your previous life. These are things that are likely to change. The ability to tell them, I am sorry I was bad to you. I am sorry that I was mean to you. These are all the catharsis that you allow individuals to cleanse themselves at a point in which they have like a different perspective of world. We think Adi's extension within this debate is increasingly important. Upper. Look, it is a huge decision, right? So Adi also gives you like incentive mechanism as to how it's going to be an informed choice. Because first, I think the moment this technology is created, there's likely to be sociologists, like philosophers, who like weigh in, like for and against the use of the technology. Second of all, we talked about like how in Belgium you have euthanasia, and like if you want to go through that, you have to like at least go through certain and specific experience over the next 6 months, 12 months. I think it is likely to be a choice that these individuals make. But also like, why does it just simply provide more meaning to life? To which Sally says that, look, we want individuals to study death and whatnot so that the governments can prevent it and whatnot, right? What better testimony do you have than a person who died and tells, like, I don't know, the wider society how they suffered because of like lack of medical infrastructure within their country, right? But what study currently exists to begin with that is going to be harmed because as a result of you being inside a machinery is extremely unclear. It's not going to take, I don't think it's going to take money away from like cancer research or anything. It's highly unlikely, like it's weird as to how they're intertwined. But what does Adi tell you, right? He tells you that, look, because you have an obligation to essentially provide for your family, you never spend time with them, right? Which is to say that you're always earning for them. You're never spending time from them. At a point in time, you have done literally everything for them. Small conversations about how each and every member of your family means to you, how you want to be at their wedding, how you want to be at your son's graduation, are everything that these individuals will never likely to experience if at a point in which they realize that death is certain or they're like, I don't know, die. But also, I think like a huge argument about how movements often die out and why it's problematic was not rebutted at all, right? And we get like extremely uncomparative response. Because look, I think like if like bad leaders are going to exist in this world, we think good leaders are also going to exist, right? But the problem with status quo is that the books written by a lot of popular leaders are just as not as popular because they have been like studied, they have been like I don't know, extrapolated to a large extent. But the cool thing to do is probably take like a book by a really evil dictator and like explain why that's like attractive and whatnot, because people simply have not had access to it for a long time, right? Which means to a large extent, books are probably not enough. You probably need these individuals to be vocal about what are the changes that are happening. But also, to a large extent, we tell you why lived experiences are important. The direction at which the political scene within the world is headed towards, right? Extreme right-wing rhetorics and like populism, hate and whatnot. Within the next 60 to 70 years, you need individuals living right now who will be able to tell then as to what the world then looked like. What are the structural problems that were the beginning and that were like literally the point at which you pull the trigger towards right-wing rhetorics, right? You need these lived experiences. Within this debate, I think like the only team that provided the most amount of clarification was CEO. Gave you like a realistic depiction of what this world will look like, literally took down CG's like premise and told them how it's contradictory. We're very proud to oppose.